Today I want to talk about the syntax of reporting verbs. Reporting verbs, as you already know if you've been watching some of the other videos, are verbs that that you use to summarize or paraphrase things that the authors of articles that you summarize or paraphrase do. But I'd like to put them in a larger context of other verbs that you've learned about and fit them into the categories of verbs that you probably already know about. So, verb complement types. That's a way of talking about what kind of phrase has to come after a verb. Some verbs don't require any kind of phrase as a complement at all, and these are called intransitive verbs. For example, he is sleeping, they danced, she always smiles, you will all die. Of course, you can have adverbs or prepositional phrases after this if you want to. For example, you could say he is sleeping in the bedroom, or they danced on the dance floor, or she always smiles for pictures, or you will all die after long and healthy lives. But they don't have to have any kind of complement, so they're intransitive. Transitive verbs, as you probably already know, are verbs that require a noun phrase complement. For example, I like bananas. We have everything you need. Nobody found your wallet. Okay. So here we have the verb and then the noun phrase complements. Now some verbs can be either transitive or intransitive, or as I write here, either intransitive or transitive. For example, I ate quickly. That's intransitive. Quickly is not a complement, it's just an adverb. But I ate your sandwich, that's transitive. We kissed, that's intransitive. Robin kissed Lee, that's transitive. Okay. Now, many English transitive verbs, maybe even most of them, can be intransitive also. Most intransitive verbs can also be transitive, but not always. There are some verbs that are only intransitive, and there are some verbs that are only transitive. Intransitive and transitive are not the only verb complement types. There are some that don't have special names. For example, if verbs take indirect questions as a complement. She knows what you did. So what you did is an indirect question complement. I wonder when Bill arrived. So wonder is your verb and the indirect question is when Bill arrived. And I don't think these verbs have a special name, at least in the grammar books I've taught from. Some verbs take that clauses. For example, I think that we can go now, or just I think we can go now. Or Smith and Jones, 1999, argue that these effects are due to experimental error. Now, by the way, notice I put parentheses around that here. That means that you don't have to say it. You can just say, I think we can go now. But you can't always take out that. For example, with argue just sounds better when you put in, or when you leave in the that. So how do reporting verbs fit into these verb complement types? Well, this is what you already know, by the way. Reporting verbs are verbs used to summarize or report what someone else wrote or said. They can be intransitive or transitive, or even verbs with other complement types, like that clauses or indirect questions. So indicative reporting verbs, they're the transitive reporting verbs. So Smith discusses the effects of, it's transitive. You have your verb and your noun phrase. Jones presents the results of whatever. So we have your verb and the noun phrase complement. Smith and Jones developed a method to do whatever. So your verb, your noun phrase complement. So these are indicative or transitive reporting verbs. Informative reporting verbs, on the other hand, are the ones that take a that clause. For example, Smith claims that these results are false. Jones concludes that further research is needed. Smith and Jones argue that there are 3 main ways. Now you will recall that there are some verbs that are both intransitive and transitive. Well, in the same way, some reporting verbs can be either indicative or informative. That is, they can take either a noun phrase complement or a that clause. For example, Smith found a solution. That's indicative. Smith found that students overestimated their competence. That's informative because it's taking a that clause. Jones reports an interesting development. That's indicative because it takes a noun phrase. Jones reports that 30% of the variance can be accounted for by blah blah blah. So that's informative because it takes a that clause. But some are just one or the other. So present, that is indicative only. Jones presented his findings. You cannot say Jones presented that violent crimes had decreased. Present is indicative only. Now let me say that this sentence does make sense. If you tell me Jones presented that violent crimes had decreased, I will understand you perfectly, but it will still be a distraction, and it will make me think, oh yes, this is someone whose native language is not English. For another example, Smith argued that taxes should be raised. That's fine. It's informative. It takes a that clause. But if you say, Smith argued the results of the study, that doesn't work. And in fact, I'm not even sure what it would mean. Does it mean that she makes an argument involving the results of her study or his study? Or does it mean that Smith disagrees with the results of the study? It's unclear. So how do you know which verbs are indicative only and which are informative only and which can be both? Well, that's something that you have to learn, and to do that you can use dictionaries or corpora or just ask native speakers, but that's for another video. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in class.